realize the opportunity more than you ever read about, you've seen on television, or you've listened about. This week, you're going to find out how amazing this place is and how much opportunity exists. So welcome, everybody. We're excited to have you, and it's going to be a fun week. The Greater Bay Area. So right now, we talked a little bit about this at dinner last night as people were arriving, but right now there's a strong initiative to create, and it's actually already there, what's called the Greater Bay Area, which takes over an advantage of the Pearl River Delta. It includes 11 cities, 11 different cities. Of these 11 cities combined, this area is 3 times larger than the San Francisco Bay. Within 1 hour, you can get to cities that represent San Francisco, Las Vegas, or New York City. And in some cases, as we talked about last night, Long Beach. So you've got one of the largest ports in the world, you've got one of the largest financial centers, one of the largest business centers, one of the global technology and innovation centers, and Macau. All within one really quick drive in less than an hour. From high-speed trains to rails to bridges, everything is there to get you into this center and being able to do business effectively. What's crazy, just to throw some stats at you, this puts about 70 million people, 70 people within an hour's drive of each other. So when you think about your products, when you're talking to people this week, think about that in context. You start doing business here, you now have instant access to almost 70 million people. The GDP alone of just this region is 1.3 trillion, almost 1.4 trillion. To give you that in context, the GDP of the US is about 16 to 17 trillion dollars. So just this region alone is 1/7, almost 1/6 of that region. So as you guys are hearing all of this, again, keep it back into that context of what's going to be known as the Greater Bay Area. Let's talk to a few people who have done business, whether it's cross-border, they've been successful, they've worked with US-based corporations. I wanted to bring them up here because even though you're here to meet, you're here to do business, I want you to hear some of the lessons learned from those who have come before you, and hopefully can provide some shining light on what their experiences were as well. So I'd like to welcome Mr. Josh Steimle, Alex, and also Dr. Wong. All right, everyone can have a seat, whichever order. Dr. Wong here. All right, so I'm going to press record on my little camera here.
So originally I started my company in Philadelphia. We had 3 months of startup acceleration in Philadelphia called Dream It. Then after that, we originally planned to set up business in the US. However, we found that the visa is an issue. Then we go back to Singapore, where we are originally from. So we start our business in Singapore and set up a team over there. The product we are making is a smart lock. So we are making smart lock for Airbnb homeowners and also for hotel and so on. In Singapore and Southeast Asia, it's very difficult to find a supply chain that can support our hardware. So we decided to set up office in Shenzhen to manage the supply chain and the factories here. So far, because of this complete supply chain, we have rolled out our product very quickly, and we have identified a lot of reliable partners in Shenzhen, in Guangdong, so that we can grow our business globally. Our product currently selling in 70 countries, and we expect to have a revenue of 20 million RMB this year. Thanks.
I'm Josh Steimle. I'm originally from Los Angeles. I lived in Utah for 14 years before moving to Asia. I moved here in 2013, first to Hong Kong, and then I moved to Shenzhen 1 year ago. And I don't run a startup. My business was started in 1999, so we've been around for a little while, but we still try to run like a startup, and I'm involved in the entrepreneurial communities in Hong Kong as well as here in Shenzhen. And I run a marketing agency, so we provide SEO, websites, all sorts of marketing support services to larger companies as well as to a handful of startups. And so my experience that's relevant is probably more around being an American, coming here to China, starting a business here, and some of the challenges and aspects of being American and doing business here, and just logistics of how do you get a company up and running and such like that.
I'm Alex Wong. I'm originally from here. I was born and raised here, but went to the States many years ago, like 23 years ago, and stayed in the States for about 14 years before I came back. I lived in the States for, stayed in many places like Chicago, Wisconsin, Boston, Memphis, Tennessee, and Silicon Valley. So I've gotten around in the States, and finally I decided to come back here. I did startups back in the Valley, like many years ago, and then started my own company here in Shenzhen. Actually, it's in Shenzhen, Hong Kong, and in Memphis, Tennessee. It was a partner of mine I used to work with. My experience for cross-border business here is how to bridge, as a Chinese and as a Chinese American, how to bridge the cultural differences between US companies and Chinese companies, especially when it comes to my own startup here in Shenzhen, Hong Kong, and Memphis is primarily focused on helping US companies find the right partners, manufacturing partners, for their new product designs, not for existing products transfer from the US to China, but rather for their new product designs, how to translate their designs from from the specs and drawings to actually manufacturable processes and workable sketches and schedules, how to do the prototypes first and expand to mass production capabilities, that kind of things. It's this whole 9 yards for from the drawings to finished products, produced products, rather than only prototypes. A lot of times it's very difficult for the U.S. companies to do that because it's very hard for them to work with the Chinese manufacturers due to cultural differences and the time differences, and also technical understandings when they simply transfer their files over to the Chinese companies. It's very difficult for the Chinese companies to grasp every single technical detail to make the product right for the first pass. I mean, we can share a little bit more. I don't want to consume too much time here. If you have any questions, you can ask me. I mean, I've been working for this, in this area for the past, like 10, 15 years. So,
Thank you. So first question actually for Josh and Alex. Both of you guys mentioned starting in Hong Kong and then coming to China and kind of bridging those two cities together. Can you talk a little bit about the advantage that you found or the reason you guys decided to go and start in Hong Kong and then expand here to China?
Yeah, for my part, so the reason I went to Hong Kong first was because I was scared to come to China. So let's just get that out there. I was just afraid of it. I didn't know China. I didn't speak the language, and the perception I had of doing business in China was a little bit negative. I thought, hey, if I go there straight to China and I've never done business in Asia before, I'm going to get taken advantage of because there are going to be all these fast-talking Chinese guys who are going to just steamroll me. And so I thought, I'm going to take a first step, go to Hong Kong first, get comfortable there, make some trips into China, and then I'll move to China later if I think that's the right step. And I loved Hong Kong, and Hong Kong's great, but Hong Kong's a very small market. It's 7 million people, and it really is kind of a self-contained bubble of sorts. I think it's a great place to start a business, to run a business. You have access to the open internet, faster internet. There's some advantages, I think, to having an office in Hong Kong versus in China, but once I made some trips into China and realized, it's not that hard to live here, to do business here, to communicate. And once my business had an office up and running in Hong Kong that was self-sufficient, then I looked at Shenzhen and I thought, well, this is so easy to move across the border to Shenzhen, and I can still get back and forth to Hong Kong, do what I need to do in Hong Kong. I can make day trips there, go there, come back, and it's very easy. And so I kind of get the best of both worlds now, because now I'm living here in Shenzhen, but I can still go back to Hong Kong when I need to. And since moving here 1 year ago to Shenzhen, I've realized actually it's a lot easier to do business here than I thought it was. I haven't been taken advantage of by anybody that I know of yet. Maybe a taxi driver or two. But it's been actually a really positive experience coming here and doing business in Shenzhen, and I've been surprised at just how easy it has been to set things up and to get going and to find clients and to work with people, and not just within the expat community, but with local Chinese companies as well.
Yes, I do have some horrible stories first. Now I have some good stories. At the very beginning, I was in Singapore at that time. I tried to contact some local, they call EMS. So it's kind of a one point of contact person that you can be rely on. Then they can handle everything for you. So I use a website called Global Source, and I can source some vendors. I found one looks quite reliable. I contact with him. He replied to me very quickly. In one day, I decided to make a deal with him. The first few months were very good. We made a first prototype. Quickly, we have done the tooling. But gradually, I feel that they are very good design house, but they're not good at mass production. So at the mass production phase, we do have a lot of issues come out, and we try to solve it, but take a longer time. Then I think it's time for me to base here and find a person that I can rely on, so who will join our companies to be my staff. Then, because of the new staff coming, he is very familiar with local suppliers, has a lot of contacts, and then we decided to terminate the business relationship with that design house. We source our own supply chain. We kind of make our own supply chain to produce this product. So far, we have been doing well after have a clear cut with previous contact. Yeah. So the lesson I have learned is that before you come to China, it's good you can try to source some vendors. You have to be physically here, no matter yourself or you have someone who's from your company to base here. Yeah. To manage the factories, the supply chain, and try to visit more frequently to understand. As Alex mentioned, prototype is easy, mass production will come out a lot of issues, a lot, and something is very unexpected. Yeah. And after you have someone based here, it's better to make some friends. You know, China is still kind of relationship society. You need to have a local person who has a lot of contacts. Maybe that guy is not in good education background, so he may just graduate from high school, but he lived in Shenzhen for 10 years. He knows a lot of friends, and I clearly see that for the same price, if he talk to the same vendors and I talk to the vendors, the price will be different because they're close. So. When we were in Singapore and in the US, we care about the educational background of a candidate. But here, in 1990s, a lot of people come here. They just come here as a worker or laborer. Then after 10 years, 20 years of experience, now they know a lot of factories boss, so they can easily get in contact with many supply chain companies. So they can easily buy. I can tell you an example is in our lock, smart lock, there's a gearing system. Because my staff, he knows someone in Guangdong, then he can easily get the sample for us. But that sample is not really sell outside. If as a client you want to buy that gearing system, you need to be in that top. In terms of revenue, in terms of you have like at least 100 person staff in the companies, so that they will sell the gearing system to you. So the lesson that I learned is that you need to have someone who have a lot of contacts here, Chinese, who know factories, but he may not be very good educational background.
Yeah, just to reiterate everything that was just said. I mean, you can be successful running a business from the US or from a different country and just coming here and visiting China. There are examples of success, but I think your success is 1,000 times more likely if you have people here on the ground. And I'm not manufacturing anything, I'm not running that type of business here, but I know a lot of people who are doing this, and there is a big distinction between those who have a team here on the ground and those who are managing in long distance and making trips over here. And so if I were starting any sort of physical product type business here in China, or that's being sourced here from China, I would definitely have somebody on the ground living here, if at all possible, to manage that process, because it's going to cut down on your production times, it's going to cut down on time to review product. I mean, it's the difference between somebody emailing you while you're in SF and saying, hey, we've got this new stuff ready, why don't you plan a trip and come over here? And so 3 weeks later, you're able to get on a plane, get over, review it, versus, hey, we've got this ready, why don't you just cruise over here and you spend a half hour and you go over and review it and give that feedback and you just cut out 3 weeks. The speed at which your competitors are doing things over here because they're here is just amazingly fast. You may have heard that there are Kickstarter projects going online, and there are Chinese companies that go on Kickstarter, they look at what's popular and what's trending, and before that Kickstarter is finished, they've already got it on shelves in a store, a competing product, because they're just ripping that off, copying it, getting it out of manufacturing before the Kickstarter guys even finished raising funding to even start design and manufacturing. So your competitors are moving that quickly because they're here. You can move that fast too if you're here and if you have that local help to work with you. And talking about hiring local help, one of the mistakes I see with companies that are coming over here is they make relationships too quickly and they just hire the first person who comes along. And just getting some choices, I mean, talk to 3 people instead of 1. Really interview people before you hire somebody on or make them your partner. Just these basic hiring recommendations or tips will really go a long way, because if you talk to the first guy who comes along and he sounds good and he has these great contacts and you go and you enter into this big partnership, that guy may end up ripping you off and then you spend 6 months fixing the huge mess that guy got you into. Whereas if you had just sat down with 3 or 4 other people and you had a little pool to compare, and if you had done a little more research, if you had checked some references, if you had made sure that you got to know some people well and trusted them, and then you got referrals from them instead, a little bit of time up front can save a lot of time and expense later on.
Walter, you want to go first?
I gotta think about it.
Among the 4 gentlemen, I'm the Asian face. So it's no brainer for me to come to Shenzhen to start business here. The advice I give to you is that I heard one saying that really impressed me, is that there's no market so homogeneous like China in the world, that you can scale your products so quickly. Give you an example, Didi, right? Uber and Didi. So, currently Didi has 10 million drivers in its platform. Well, 10 million drivers is only like 2.5% of total drivers in China. Then becomes such a huge companies. So anything in China, if you times 1.4 billion, is an unbelievable outcome. So in terms of market and also in terms of talents, it's huge here. I recently realized that there's a group of talents, they study abroad and come back to China. So if you're from Europe, right, you can easily find someone who studied from Europe, but they come back to Shenzhen, who know your culture and also Chinese culture, and you can make friends with them. If you're from Southeast Asia, and there are some Singaporeans, some Malaysians, they study there and they come back to Shenzhen to start business. So there's such a community you can mingle around and you can make friends with. You can start with them, to make friends with them, then try to develop your own kind of friends, and the community your own belongs to you here. So you feel more comfortable. You don't feel it's so different from your own culture. Yeah.
I'm just going to go back to that tip about, or that advice about being here, I recognize for most people, it's not practical to move to China. You can't just say, hey, I'm gonna up and move to China all of a sudden. But if you can't do that, my advice would be come and live here for 2 or 3 months. If you can live here for 3 months, that will go a long ways. That's going to be a lot better than just making a bunch of visits over here. If you come over here and you make visits for 1 or 2 weeks at a time, you don't get the same experience that you get living here for even just 2 or 3 months. If you live here for 2 or 3 months, you get in a little bit with the community, you get a different feel for how things run here, and you'll be worlds ahead of where you will be if you're just making a bunch of trips over here, one-off trips. And so again, if you can't move here for a year or 2, move here for 3 months and just try that out and then go back. You'll still be way ahead of just making those 1 or 2 week trips.
Real quick, Alex. Yeah. Yep.
I emphasize too much on the manufacturing side, but for the market side, I think just don't multiply the population, with each individual, like expanding, and to get to the number that the China market has, do some real market research and don't just transplant your experience back in the States here, because it's a totally different dynamic here. So I just want to caution everybody, that's very dangerous to do, that, just transplanting what your, experience was in the past, over here. Do the real market research, get to know this market and the specifics of this market before you do anything here. That's my advice.
Awesome. Thank you guys very, very much. Appreciate your time.